We are joined by a few people here that are pushing really hard to get youth sports back on in California, in the state of California. That's one of the few states where youth sports have not been played at all since the pandemic struck, and they are trying to make it happen as soon as possible. We are with the leaders of the push to let them play in California, and really kind of spearheaded, at least from my point of view, really spearheaded from this Facebook group that is now up to 33,800 members. It's called Let Them Play California, and we are joined by a few people here that we're going to discuss this with. First, my partner here, Kyle Foster. He runs Napa Sports News. Brad Hensley, who's kind of the created the Facebook group, at least from my view, and kind of been pushing real hard with this. Anna Mendenhall, who is a medical professional and pediatrician. Coach Patrick Walsh, who is the head football coach at Serra High School and is the leader of the Golden State High School Coaches Association. And we have a couple of athletes joining us, Troy Faulkner and Cameron Woolsey. Everyone, how are we doing today?
Good.
Doing great. Thanks for having us, Michael.
Doing good.
Great. So we're gonna get into this discussion here of, this movement, and it really has become a movement and garnering a lot of media attention, at least at the local and state level. Brad, I kind of want to direct this first question to you is, why did you guys try and spearhead this and really get this going off the ground to try and make this push to get athletes back out onto the field and court?
Yeah, it was done, frankly, out of frustration. My wife and I were sitting at the kitchen table 2 weeks ago, and we've been patient like so many other parents, probably too patient in a system and frankly a government that has failed our kids. No one seems to be speaking out for them or representing them. So we knew that there were like-minded parents out there. We knew that there were coaches out there. We knew that there were players that were really suffering. So we made an attempt at creating a Facebook page with just the two of us. And the next day there were 50. The end of that day, there were 100. It became 500. And now we're, like you mentioned, we're over 33,000. I think we're going to be over 50,000 this weekend. And per Coach Walsh's prediction, we're going to be over 100,000 by the end of this month. I think it's important to note, too, you have two organizations here. They're not the same organization, but they started serendipitously, and they work in conjunction with each other. And so the other organization that we work with and is pushing the same agenda that we are is from Coach Patrick Walsh and the Golden State Coaches Association.
Gotcha. So, going along with the Facebook group, did you guys expect it to grow this fast? I mean, when I first joined the group, it was at 100-something members, and then it grew to like, 15,000 is where we're at right now. I mean, it grew super fast in just
33,000 now.
Yeah, no, we're at 33,000. So
wow.
I think we did not expect that. We were hoping if we got 1,000 people, then maybe we could, start to get a little of attention and start to grow it. We did not know, but it was after about a week when we aligned with the Golden State Coaches Association and just people, we started getting 3,000 to 4,000 members a day. It was, and we weren't doing any advertising. It was just word of mouth. It became pretty clear that a Facebook page was about to become a movement.
How much of this, I heard there was a rally in November at the state capitol. How much of it kind of had to do with that and really get it off the ground?
It didn't from our end. In November, we were still patiently waiting for guidance in terms of when the kids could go back and play sports. So, that didn't, maybe it added a little fuel to our fire eventually, but that wasn't the reason that we started the movement. It was really the unveiling of what we believe is a flawed tiered system for sports. That was kind of the last straw that we realized that under this system, we're not going to be able to play sports. Our kids are being damaged emotionally and physically. We need to do something.
So have you had any conversations with Gavin Newsom or his office? I mean, they've been the ones that have kind of been hounding high school sports to make it hard for them to go on. Have you guys had any conversations there with them?
So again, this is kind of where we work with the Golden State Coaches Athletic Association. They are leading a portion of that movement to get an audience. That is our goal, to get an audience with the governor. We are influencing at least our group through local politicians, through California State Assembly members. Jim Desmond has been our champion here. Kevin Kiley will be joining one of our rallies in the Bay Area this weekend, which this afternoon, which I just heard. We have not had any correspondences yet with Gavin Newsom. Yet we have asked. Coach Walsh, I don't know if you want to talk about what your group is doing to get that audience.
Yeah, I mean, we've crafted a letter which will probably be sent today directly to the governor and the California Department of Public Health. With the singular goal of getting the tiered system removed. We start doing the math of the tiered system based on where the sports are placed. You start doing the math, and it doesn't add up for us to have a season and for the kids to get out there as soon as possible. Furthermore, it doesn't seem like the data supports that the tiered system, as it applies to youth sports, matches up at all. We don't have any data from the other side that shows that this is a reasonable approach. For example, basketball's in the yellow tier, which the yellow tier is less than 1 per 100,000 people. And that basically means there's no COVID. So is there no COVID in 2021? There's going to be COVID in 2022. So basically basketball is never going to be played again. It just doesn't really add up for us. And it's time to have a real conversation with the people making these decisions that are affecting the mental health of these wonderful kids here that simply want to play.
Well, this is a follow-up question to you, Coach Walsh. Football is obviously in the orange tier. How likely do you think football is at this point, given the new guidelines that the state just released yesterday?
Not very likely. I mean, everyone's in the purple tier right now. There's some counties like LA County who've never been out of purple ever. There's other counties maybe up north, or there's been counties that have been down to the orange, but not many. So we also have a hard end date with the CIF that our season must be complete by April 17th. So you start going orange tier April 17th, and that window starts to shrink. The problem is we have to get out of the mindset of the tier system altogether. If we can't get out of the mindset of the tiered system altogether, then high school football, particularly for 2020, 2021, is in unique jeopardy. The other question here is why are the tiers? Why is the system, applied to Little League baseball? It just, AYSO soccer, flag football. I mean, you name it. It just doesn't seem, the data doesn't seem to support what they produced on December 14th. And when Bradley saw that on December 14th, it was like, right around there, I'm like, we need more. This is not going to work. And that's when, I started the Golden State High School football coaches community.
I do want to we're going to get into the data a little bit later. And we'll get to Dr. Mendenhall on that as far as the studies and the stats that have come out. But I do want to talk about kind of the movement and the endorsements you received, like former candidate for governor, John Cox. I saw that he retweeted it. Have there been any other high profile people or celebrities or politicians that are trying to help you guys push this movement up to the governor's office?
Yeah, I didn't even know that John Cox retweeted it. That's how fast this movement is going in momentum. I mean, it's minute by minute we're getting endorsements. I mentioned Kevin Kiley. I mentioned Jim Desmond. We're seeing traction with professional athletes. Coach, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that and name some names.
Yeah, I had a Zoom call 2 days ago with David Bakhtiari, the left tackle of the Green Bay Packers, Hunter Bishop, who was the first round draft pick by the San Francisco Giants last year, and someone you may or may not have heard of named Tom Brady, all of which are Serra High School graduates, on a Zoom call, and we're going to produce that when the playoffs are over. We don't want anything to be a distraction to Brady and his Super Bowl run. So it's gaining traction. A lot of people who benefited, David Bakhtiari didn't play down a football until his senior year at Serra High School. And if he didn't have that senior year, who knows where he'd be right now, let alone the kids who get so much out of youth sports who won't be David Bakhtiari making $110 million. So a lot of people are getting behind this. And I think that was the ultimate goal I think Brad and I had was, Brad getting the parents behind it, myself and all the California coaches coming together to support kids. And this is a nothing short of the fact that we love kids and we want to see them play. And I think you can be lost. We don't want to get caught up in politics and all these other things, although this is political in a sense. But at the core of everything we do is that we love kids and we want to see them on the fields.
So how many coaches do you have in your association?
We're approaching 700.
Dang.
So, and we have, I started a Golden State core team, which is 35 coaches, all representative of every single one of our 10 sections. And, some of the biggest coaches in the state of California, like Justin Allenbaugh from De La Salle, Jason Negro from St. John Bosco, Ron Gladnick and Sean Doyle down there in San Diego. Just wonderful men, all wonderful coaches, all very competent men who love and care about kids and know that with proper protocols, we can get these kids back on the football fields soon.
Yeah, I saw, you mentioned it's political in a sense, although you guys aren't trying to push any political agenda, but we have seen in the Facebook group, the Recall Gavin Newsom petition, which has gained a lot of attention and esteem over the past few weeks. I know, Brad, when I talked to you on the phone, you had kind of wanted to address that and make sure that it's for the kids, not for anyone's political agenda.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I appreciate that. As you can imagine, with the growth that we've had, 3,000 to 4,000 new members a day, we have to educate them on our culture, right? And our culture, we abide by two principles. One, you only post it if it's going to help us immediately bring youth sports back to California. And two, if it's done in a positive way. Of course, this is politically charged with a lot of people, but we are not a political organization. We are not pushing a political agenda. We only want positive posts that help bring back youth sports. We have moderators in place. We have keywords in place. And when we do see things like that are politically charged, we do our best to remove and correct.
And I think it's important to note that in getting to know you better, Brad, and myself, we're not Facebook guys. I hadn't been on Facebook in probably 9 years until January 2021. So we're doing the best we can to make sure the message is on point with the parents and what Bradley's doing with the parents and what I'm doing with the coaches, just keeping us on point, keeping us centered to get, wonderful kids like you guys back on the field.
So another question for you, Coach Walsh. Have you guys been able to do any sort of conditioning at all, like during this time?
Yes. So the majority of coaches in California have been able to do cohort workouts, they call them, which could be any little as, 7 players up to 20. I've heard some have even got higher than that with the coach ratio. Some of us, depending on local guidelines, can use equipment. Some of us can be closer than 6 feet. Some of us need to be further than 6 feet. Some of us are lifting, some of us aren't, but most of us are doing something. The tragedy that I've learned in all of this, and something that's becoming very dear to me, is that there are sections like the Oakland athletic section, the Oakland section, that haven't seen their coaches on campus since March 10th, 2020. They have been banned from their campus. San Francisco section, banned from their campuses. LA City leagues within this inner city of LA, banned. San Jose, some sections or some leagues in San Jose Unified, banned from going to their schools. How is this good for kids? We have data that supports that if you come to one of these workouts, you're not going to catch COVID, nor are you going to spread it. So how can you tell me an inner city kid in Oakland can't go to his campus to run around and be with his friends and tell me how this is good? How is this good for kids? And it's just simply not.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the data, and the rate of transmission from workouts from the data you guys provided us was 1 in 103,766 athletes left with COVID-19. And there's a bunch of data here. 1 in 69,622 coaches came back to workouts out of 139,244 workouts. Coaches arrived and left school campus workouts COVID-free 109,242 times. So just 2 positives traced back to that. Coach, I do want to ask you, though, about, we're in the tiered system now, and a football season will have to be done by this April 17th. Obviously, I assume this means that you support a delayed shortened season this year as well as a delayed shortened season next season. Am I wrong about that?
I think the reality of a delayed shortened season this year is going to happen. There's no way anyone's playing more than 7 or 8 games given the current parameters with the color tiered system and the end date basically from the CIF section. I do not believe that our 2021 season will be truncated unless the tiers still remain and we're still dealing with COVID-19. So if the tiers still remain and we're still dealing with COVID-19, God help us all on that comment. I'm fearful that fall 2021 is in jeopardy. The tiered system needs to be changed now. It needs to be changed for the 2020-2021 group, and it needs to be changed for the 2021-2022 group, because it's a failed and flawed system. It doesn't match up for what is right for what youth sports should be doing. So we are expecting a shortened season. The way it looks now, we might play 1 game. Maybe we play 2. You or no one on this call or anyone in this world can tell us when we're going to hit the orange in San Mateo County, right? We also play in our league. We play 3 different counties. So part of the system that was presented on December 14th is you can't play a team from 2 counties over. So our San Jose County, Santa Clara County schools can't play a school from San Francisco County because you'd be crossing over 2 counties. That needs to change.
I do want to follow up with you on that because, there's a talk of, especially in a sport like football, the recovery time between seasons. So in a normal season, if you win a state championship, your last game is the week before Christmas, then you're not getting into games until the following August. So about an 8-month difference.
Yeah.
If this were to happen this year, where your teams are playing the last game, let's say on the 17th or that weekend, April 17th, then it's cut in half. It's just a 4-month difference. Is there not a worry in that aspect of it, with football being a violent game as it is, not playing as many games, not playing as many snaps, but still playing just those few games and not having it affect the next season if it were to start on time?
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think anything that goes beyond, let's say, the end of April really pushes into that argument that you're making. And obviously football with concussions and other things that are, it is a collision sport, right? So I get that. With that said, we are up against a simple math equation: color versus end date. It would be nice, and we have a great relationship, all our organizations, with the CIF executive team, and there's great people fighting for us there. If they could delay the start of the fall season, right? Push it back. We used to, when I was your guys' age, we would start like after Labor Day. Right now we start, our first games are August 7th or something, because we got to get 16 games in, and it's gotten long. And I think a lot of us would vote, and this is not like a final declaration for us from the coaches community, but I think a lot of us would get behind, hey, let's take care of these kids this year. This is a once in 100, maybe ever situation that's ever been thrusted upon humanity. So maybe if we could push the time, we need time, right? Michael, we need time. We need to push the time as far as we can. If maybe we could end at the end of May and get the season in for the kids, then maybe we could delay the start of 2021 a little bit for football. I think many coaches would sign up for that. Haven't got that down in writing yet, but I think it's something that should be considered and talked about. With that said, I do know the CIF is responsible for 813,000 kids, and they can't make decisions based on football alone. So I understand the complexity of doing that.
On that, along with your whole football talk here, do you have any contingency plans about, like, if, say, you guys in your WCAL lose teams from San Francisco and Santa Clara County, do you have a contingency plan to play inside your county only? I know that's been talked about up here in Northern California and like Napa County where I'm at. Is that something that you guys are thinking about too, as a backup plan if it needs to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I've discussed that just internally with the coaches here in the county. That brings up other issues, in terms of disparity, size of schools, public versus private, and it brings up another set of issues. But if it came down to that, Kyle, I'm going to tell you this right now. Justin and I have been very public about this at De La Salle. The first game we play, every single human being on my roster is going to play. Every single one of them. And they're going to play, and they're going to play a lot. I don't care if we win, lose, draw. I don't really care at all. Those kids that have been working out, doing jumping jacks since April 2020 are going to get on the field wearing a Serra Padre uniform. They're going to play. So if the other team from whoever we're playing doesn't have that similar value, we might get crushed, but I don't care. And I'm willing to do the same type of thing if we are playing a regional game, against a team that we might be stronger than. So again, this all comes back to you guys. I'm looking at you right now. It comes back to you. You need to play. And I think as coaches and adults, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that happens, whether it's regionally or beyond.
I want to get to the players now because they've been sitting here very patiently, and I want to get them involved. When the season shut down, or not your season, but basically the world shut down in March, going to online classes, distance learning, and, you may have had to work out a little bit, but probably not too much. Kind of what effect has it had on you guys mentally? And I'll start with Troy, and then Cameron, you can answer after.
Yeah, so working out, like when you're not with all your teammates, it's really hard. It's not hard, but it's harder than, to find that motivation to be working out every day, especially when you don't know if you're going to have a season or not, You're just working out with no real goals in mind except to just stay strong and keep getting stronger. So, it's good that we're fighting to keep having a season because I've been working out since March to try to stay ready, and I know all my teammates have too. So I really say thank you to Patrick and Brad for fighting for us. So I really want to get back out there.
Cameron, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Troy on that. I know that the team's been working out and, just grinding for the opportunity that we might be given. But I think it's hard because, it's hard to stay mentally ready for that with a lot of people that, they're telling you might not get a season. And then there's people telling you to stay mentally ready. And, it kind of just, it tests you to always be in that state of mind of that, yeah, we are going to have a season. And I think that's been like the hardest part for me is just not working out and stuff. Cause we're athletes, we're going to go run, we're going to go stay in shape and push ourselves. But I think the biggest aspect for me is just mentally staying prepared.
Perfect. So next one is for you, Dr. Mendenhall. What have you found out about sort of playing sports in the middle of this pandemic? Is there anything that, like the data, we've all obviously seen the data, but like the effects on the kids, like what have you found out through research and all that kind of thing about playing sports during this time?
Well, sports are a necessary part of our overall social and emotional and healthy well-being. And so without sports, early in the pandemic, the University of Wisconsin did a study about high school athletics and college athletics, and about 50% of athletes reported depression due to the fact that their sport just got yanked from them. They're not in school, they're not in sports. We're seeing some research finally coming out from mid-March to mid-October talking about emergency department figures for kids with mental health problems. The rates are skyrocketing because of no sports. We know sports helps, release those natural endorphins and help kids deal with stress and anxiety and depression and isolation. And they're getting none of that through this pandemic. They're not getting support for school. They're not seeing their friends in person. And frankly, we've erred on the side of caution entirely too long. Kids need to be in sports, and we're seeing tragic stories every week. Suicides and depression aren't publicized a lot because it's really hard for those families, but it's bad. I personally have had 2 patients this week who are still in the hospital and may not make it from suicide attempts. And this is happening all over our state. And frankly, it's criminal what's happening to these kids. My husband can go make a tea time and play golf with his buddies, but yet my high schooler can't play on the golf team. Where's the logic? This is truly not okay. And we're seeing so many research studies just now coming out with what's been going on. But the problem is it seems to be worsening because the goalposts keep moving for these kids. Like, oh yeah, this will happen on this date. Oh, great. My kid's water polo season is going to start February 1st. Oh, wait, now it's not going to start, So, it's really hard for these kids, like they were just saying, to stay motivated and to stay positive when the adults are yanking them around with these arbitrary color-coded charts that really shouldn't be used. So the mental health tolls are really mounting up. And frankly, the data we have from other states that are wide open shows that kids in sports are actually having lower rates of COVID than kids that aren't in sports, in high school sports. So it's a no-brainer. These kids should be back in sports.
I do want to kind of follow up with you on that. Do you think that in order for this to happen, the governor has to allow schools to open for in-person learning? Because I know there was a private school in my hometown that wanted to open in September, but when this whole tier thing came out, they obviously weren't allowed to. Is that kind of like the first step in getting them back out playing sports? Or do you think that they could start playing sports even if they are doing distance learning?
I believe they can start playing sports even if they're doing distance learning, because unlike the teachers and the teachers unions who really aren't pushing to be back in school for in-person learning, a lot of these amazing coaches like Coach Walsh and many, many other coaches, not just football, but all the other sports, those coaches realize the importance they have in these kids' lives and that sports has. And I think that as long as you have coaches that are willing to be there, and I know they're there, that we can, CIF is separate from the school in-person learning. And I think sports can be separated from that. That being said, that's a whole nother ball of wax that is, again, not being dealt with in a proper way. And I've called the governor personally several times, gotten zero response from him or his office. So very frustrated with that.
Yeah, our platform is to decouple them as best as we can, that we believe that youth sports can be played without fighting the fight of kids going back to school. It's a separate issue.
I want to ask about indoor sports like basketball and volleyball and things like that. Obviously, it's been determined that anything outdoors is deemed to be much safer from a virus standpoint. But if there were to be a basketball season during this, while we're in the middle of this pandemic, not everyone has been vaccinated, et cetera, could there be a safe way to do that as well and not just play the outdoor sports like baseball and football and, golf?
Well, there's 30
100%.
sports. Oh, go ahead, Doc.
I was just going to say 100%. I mean, they're doing it professionally. There's not a big difference. They're doing it in colleges. We have rapid testing. So there's many easy ways to do indoor sports. And actually, the Wisconsin study showed that the rates of cross-country runner, which is outdoor, getting COVID was higher than someone playing indoor girls volleyball. So it's not necessarily the indoor sport that would make you at higher risk. I think it's what you do outside, off the court and outside of the field, that is causing rates of COVID and not necessarily related to the sports. I think there's a lot of ways to do it safely. There's plenty of testing available. And I think all sports should be going about it in a safe way and can do so.
Oh, well, 30 states in the United States of America are currently playing basketball right now. So I think sometimes we get trapped in colors and tiers and our borders, and we stop thinking that there's a bigger world outside of the California. So it's happening right now, and it can happen for our kids right now. So there is a difference. There's clearly a difference, but we have a ton of data on outdoor sports, and being that football, and being that I'm a football coach representing a football organization, our efforts have been spent more onto the tightening window of getting a football season in, because basketball is not scheduled to end until June anyway.
Yeah, you're right. That's a season 2 season anyway. But going along with that, Dr. Mendenhall, what's been the consensus among other people in your profession about trying to get youth sports back?
I think pediatricians and physicians that care for children of all ages are very acutely aware of the disservice that adults who have made these arbitrary decisions have done to the children. And I think my colleagues and many other colleagues throughout the state are strongly advocating to get kids back into their sports, let alone back into their schools. Like I said, that's a separate issue, but the American Academy of Pediatrics is there for the health and well-being of children, and sports help the health and well-being of children.
I want to follow up on that first, but I want everyone to answer this question. Have any of you had any pushback, either in the field you're in or from the students, other students at your school or other students that you know, and from Patrick, other coaches? I mean, have any of you had pushback on this and say, hey, why are you doing this? You know, people are dying every day. You know, why are we worrying about this when, you know, people are going through other things? And I guess, Doctor, we can start with you, and then everyone can kind of go around the table and kind of tell us what the pushback has been, you know, with this movement and trying to get youth sports back out.
I don't think there's been too much of a pushback. I think people realize that children are at such low risk. I think that the choice of understanding one's risk should be the family. And certainly certain families have athletes that have high-risk family members, and they may opt out of the season. But the vast majority of kids are not at risk, and their immediate families are not at risk for COVID. And there, you know, I think there was a coach in Pennsylvania, a football coach, that said it well, that said, families know the risk, and why are we taking away families' abilities to make those choices? And I think that's where government has gotten in the way. And, you know, I don't think there's too much pushback, but certainly, you know, there's families that are affected by COVID. But I think we see more children who are affected emotionally, negatively from it than anything physically with their health.
Coach, go ahead.
Oh, you know, obviously I run in the circle. Coaches want to coach. Coaches they signed up to coach kids. You know, we that's our business. That's what we do. And most of the guys that I run with, I haven't had any pushback from any coaches saying, hey, why are you fighting for these kids? You're making a mistake. Now, you know, obviously I live in my own little world, but I think most of us are comfortable getting on the field in front of those kids because we know how important it is to them.
Yeah, Troy and Cameron, I'll have you guys go. And then Brad, I want you to kind of respond if you've gotten anything from the Facebook group or the movement itself.
Yeah, so I think there are other students who say, you know, why are sports so important we're in a pandemic, you know, we shouldn't be pushing this. But then, you know, you'll see them, they hang out with their friends to help with their mental health because it's hard to be locked up, and I understand that. But I think it's unfair for them and very contradictory to say that we shouldn't be playing sports because it's unsafe to them and their family, when really it's their decision. You know, I mean, I know it's tough to stay in your house, but if you have someone high risk, then that's your decision and you have to make that tough decision. So if you're hanging out with your friends, I think we should be able to have our football season.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I see that firsthand too, that there's the kids that, you know, they're not playing sports, or they've just given up on the whole look of sports at this point. And yeah, they're out there hanging with their friends and being the so-called spreaders, if they are. And it just doesn't show like exact exact detail of like what they're trying to like express to like people like me that want to go out in there and play sports. They're not representing well for their points. But for the majority, I haven't seen much pushback, because I think the majority of people that I'm talking to are in the same exact situation as me, and they want to get back out there and they want to play sports, or they just want to get to school and have in-person learning and just be with their friends again.
Brad, you want to respond?
Yeah, sure. Just Cameron, Troy, that was really well put. You You guys do it. You guys put it well, way better than the adults do. So, so think about our page, right? We're solely focused on bringing youth sports back to California in a positive environment. So 99%, maybe 99.9% of the 35,000 members are supportive of their kids and helping their kids, and recognize that youth sports is key to improving their mental health. Where the conversations go sideways on the Facebook page, it's not hard to see, is when it gets into politics, which there's no room for that on this movement. Troy and Cameron aren't Republican or Democrat. Kids aren't political. All they want to do is play. And that's the focus of what we're doing and what we're seeing.
Gotcha. So next up, again for Dr. Mendenhall, what would you suggest if like a player were to test positive for a football game on Wednesday night? Would the game be canceled, postponed? How would you recommend to go about that if that were to come up? And maybe Coach Walsh, you can interject on this one too.
Well, I think if one player tests positive, that's not a big deal. I mean, we've seen that in college and pro games. We have the rapid testing that we can test the whole team, and you see, who's negative. As long as everyone's negative, I think you proceed with caution. I think it's important if anyone has symptoms that they, say, hey, I have a headache. I don't normally get headaches. Maybe I should get another test, even if it's not the routine pre-game test. But I think that certainly the testing availability now is so much different than it was 9 months ago. And we have rapid testing. We can be assured of safety. And I think that kids can get, if one teammate tests positive on a Wednesday, everybody else can get tested and get the results back same day or next day to be approved for play on Friday.
Yeah, and we're prepared to follow all local county and state guidelines when it comes to actually getting to the point of playing. And there will be different hoops to jump through and different protocols. It'll be different in Chico, California than it is in San Mateo, California. And whatever those protocols are put in place by those entities, we're ready to follow them. So it could be if a kid tests positive for COVID-19, he's out for 14 days. Whatever that becomes, because it's going to differ all across the state. I know all coaches are prepared to do that, and we aren't suggesting that, hey, let's go play football, COVID-19 is going to go away. I mean, it's still something that we're going to have to deal with. There are many people suffering from it. The frontline workers that are dealing with this on a daily basis should all get Purple Hearts. I don't want my wife to get COVID-19, my kids, or anybody to have to struggle through it. But for us, it's worth the to get to the green light, to get started, to actually have to go through that. Talked to many coaches all over the country that of the 35 states who actually did play football, and they said, we are so happy that's over. But in the same breath, they say, we're so happy that we had a chance to do it.
That was the final point, that in addition to what they said, we have precedents. We have 35 other states that successfully played football seasons. And you can see from our data, I think on average, 96% of the games were played. And just note too, that based on our research, and we would probably know it because it would be so sensationalized, there hasn't been one serious hospitalization of COVID tied back to youth sports. So it's a very valid question. I really like it. And I think the answer is just there in the data and the other states that have successfully done this.
A follow-up question to that I have is like contact tracing. How hard is contact tracing going to be if sports were to start hypothetically? I mean, all these other pro and college sports, they have it to where they're able to do it pretty easily, but like obviously we don't have as much resources at the high school and youth sports level. How easy is that going to be? And again, everybody can sort of talk about that.
Well, we have 10 months of practice. So I don't think it's, what do you guys think? I mean, the players, I mean, we've been doing it since April. And if someone gets it, we trace it, we contact everyone around them, we shut it down.
I think what he's more referring to is, the players are able to go to the stadium and get a test right then and there. I think the kind of sort of access to the testing, like, hey, I got to go, to CVS to get this test, or I got to go to this fairground site. I think he's more referring to of not having to be able to go to the school and get the test done right then and there. It's like another item to add on the agenda before going to practice or a game. Kyle, am I wrong about that?
Yeah, you're right. You're saying exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so contact tracing and an implemented testing program are two different things to me. And I don't know if I'm thinking that wrong, but contact tracing for us is, I got COVID. Who did I hang around with? Let's do who contacted that person at that time, and so on and so forth. So and I already addressed that. On the second part, it would be testing. So we are, as in our groups, we now have 35,000 people with our parent group who have means and want to support this. And, there's been several people who are involved in testing companies that want to make this readily available for the kids. But having an NFL get tested every day approach is not reasonable, nor I think is necessary. So, I'm not an expert when it comes to that. Again, I think a lot of this is going to come down to local and county guidelines, state guidelines, but, our kids at Serra High School are getting tested right now. And so are the teachers, but not daily.
Brad, I want to direct this next question to you. Obviously, there were the rallies tonight up across the state, dozens and dozens of those rallies. Are there any other events on the schedule, or are there any other, discussions that you guys are going to try and put together to try and speed this process along and hopefully reach the governor at some point?
Yeah, it's urgency that's driving all this. So in terms of the rallies, there's 140 now across the state. If you'd asked me 2 days ago, that number was 96. So that number is obviously growing. We announced yesterday on our Facebook Live event that we are pursuing litigation against the state. So that's in process. Coach Walsh and his team are working with Sacramento members to deliver a letter to the governor, urging him to meet with us. Additional rallies are talking about being planned closer to Sacramento. We're having a big drive in terms of celebrities and athletes to get them behind our cause. I think that the next week you're going to find that has been a huge success for us. The thing is, all this can go away with a simple meeting with the governor. Give us an audience. Let us share with you what we believe is the real data and science, and we can skip all the court cases. We can skip all the media. We can skip all the political pressure. Let's just have a conversation.
Perfect. So now let's talk about the transmission data from other states. Have any of you guys been in contact with either medical professionals, coaches, or admins, or parents from other states about what's been going on in there and how practical it is to make this go on? I mean, I watched football, for example, in the fall in Florida, and it looked like it was very easy to put on, and very practical, something that we could do here in California. Have any of you guys had any conversations with other people in other states about that kind of stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, the main data that I wanted to come up with for what we call the back page, we have the front page where we're tracking all our workouts, because as coaches, that's all we can track. It's all we've been able to do. And just to prove that, as coaches, we're ready to take this on, we're ready to do it safely, and we're ready to follow all rules to do so. And in fact, when we invite our kids on campus, the concept of COVID-19 becoming a super spreader event, the data that we presented is very low. Now we're ready to take the next step, which is practice and athletic competition, particularly in football. The data that we wanted to produce was how many games were scheduled in the state of Texas, how many games were canceled due to the issues surrounding COVID-19. That data has been very, very hard to find specifically. And you would think that, there'd be a ton of data from state federations just helping everybody out, but that's really not the case. What I can say is that the data that we know based on that parameter, 95% of games that were scheduled were actually played. So pretty much less than 5%, or right around 5% of games were canceled due to COVID-19 issues across the states that we collected. And that is not an entirety of the 35 states that started football. 35 states did start football. 3 of them didn't finish. but they will be finishing here shortly. And if you want to see, like, if it's possible, this weekend, the Texas 5A and 6A championships are happening at Jerry World in front of 17,000 people. So are we asking to play football in front of 17,000 people? No, we'd probably want to play football in front of 70 people, or, you know, your parents or whomever. But there is a state this weekend in real time. It's January 15th today, in real time, playing high school football in an NFL stadium in front of 17,000 fans. So you guys sit there. We watch football on Friday night on TV. We watch football, which is high school. We've watched football on Saturday on TV, which is college, and we watch football every single Sunday on TV, which is pro. Where are the deaths? Where are the unique hospitalizations from all those events? I'm sure we'd hear about all of those. If it happened one time in Georgia, it would have been the biggest news ever, and high school football would be shut down forever. We haven't heard about any of those things. So just common sense and looking around the country and seeing, you know, people who I'm going to assume care about people. They care about health and safety of everyone. They're completing their seasons. I think that data alone is enough.
Finally, I kind of want to go around the horn here for the last question. I guess we can start with Brad and then Cameron, Troy, Coach Walsh, and then Dr. Mendenhall. Is there a specific message that you guys want out there that you want people to know about this movement and why you guys are trying to do this, to get all these athletes out there?
Yeah, I think you mentioned me to start. So without repeating too many things, I think the key message is that, one, we want to have a conversation because we truly believe, and the data supports it, that we have in the science, that youth sports can safely come back to California. The funny thing about, the weird thing about it is we've now narrowly defined safely for our kids in terms of spreading COVID. As a parent, you do so many things to protect your kid. You protect them from bullying. You protect them from too much sugar. You want to protect them from isolationism. You want to protect them from being depressed. Yet those are the things that are happening because youth sports is not happening, even though that we can do it in a safe manner. So let's not just look at a narrow definition of safety, which we know we can accomplish. Let's look at the broader definition, because kids are really being hurt by not being able to play youth sports.
Yeah,
Cameron, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Cam.
Can I hear the question real quick one more time?
Is there any sort of message that you want people to know about why you guys are trying to push this movement so urgently?
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think for me and for a lot of players, high school football is just like a stepping stone for the next goal that they have and their dream of to be able to play in college or even the NFL. And I think the biggest message that I want to, share is that we're getting that dream taken away from us in every aspect, because we're not only not getting to go out on Friday nights and play our football games, but we're also getting the opportunity to get that college scholarship or that signing day or anything that goes with that taken away from us too.
Troy?
So yeah, of course it's taking away a lot of people's future. And as much as it's about that, it's also about, I just want to be out there with my guys again, playing football, fighting with them, and just be out there with my high school teammates one last time in my senior year. So my message would be just please look at the data and think about the mental health of all student athletes across all sports, and just look at the data and make a good decision.
Coach, go ahead, and then we'll finish it off with Dr. Mendenhall.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a broad topic, but it really boils down to one simple thing. We want to present our data to the governor and the California Department of Public Health on behalf of our kids and their mental health. It's real simple. And we're running out of time. This has to happen now. And I think this singular act and having a reasonable response to changing the tiers or getting rid of them altogether will change literally 3 million lives who are sitting on the bench right now. 3 million lives, 3 million youth sports players, 800,000 kids in the CIF over 2 million kids play youth sports. I mean, kindergartners can't play t-ball. I just, that makes me sad, right? And I'm going to end it with this. This is a bobblehead of Coach Bob Ladouceur, who is the winningest coach in the history of California high school football, whom I got to meet in 8th grade. And without my senior year and this coach, I don't know who I would be today. And there are many kids that are being robbed of that experience when the data and science don't point to that having to be the end game. So we're hopeful, we're trying to change policy. We're trying to move a mountain. And as long as Brad and I, and you guys sitting there looking at me have hope in your hearts and eyes, we're not going to stop until we can see you guys back on the field.
Doctor, go ahead, finish us off.
Well, I just think we've erred on the side of caution for way too long, and it's time to make the right choice and get these kids back in sports.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining us. I know Kyle and I really appreciated it, and we were glad to cover the story and give you guys the media attention that you guys need and deserve, and it'll give us something to put on our websites, because we all know people are craving some content nowadays. So glad to share about the movement. Good luck to you guys. Good luck to everyone, and hopefully getting a meeting with the governor. And again, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Spread that word, baby.
Guys, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.